I'm resident of Collinwood for YouTube, Joel Sains. I'm joined by my buddy Butch Rosenbalm. We're here to discuss two movies, both with the same title. 1957's 310 to Yuma and was it 2007's 310 to Yuma. Chosen by yours truly. And I chose these films because though there's some similarity, there's also some difference here too. Which that's the one thing I enjoy most about remakes. What are your thoughts on not just remakes, Western remakes, but remakes in general?
Well, it's easy to. A lot of people like to jump on them, and sometimes through various ways that things don't work out right. Some remakes are awesome. Let's look at The Thing to start there. Then there are some remakes that are crap, and most are okay. I've said before, my favorite horror film of all time is the original Dawn of the Dead. And then when they announced they were going to remake, I was like, oh God. And I remember, I believe Patrick was like, our mutual friend Patrick was like, what do you want me to go with me? I'm like, no, in case I have to start cursing and have to leave, I went, it wasn't bad. I mean, I won't say I love it, but I was like, okay, that wasn't bad. I mean, it has nothing to do with the classic film, but remakes, I feel like if you're going to do a remake, you need to bring something to it rather than a Gus Van Sant Psycho 1999 shot for shot with just different actors. To me, that's not enough. I get, he respected the source material, and Psycho was a classic and everything. I'm kind of in the field, unless you've got something to really do with it, don't remake a classic. There's no reason to ever remake Casablanca, for example.
The problem with remaking Psycho at that time was Psycho was, and it is now too, it's one of the most played horror movies on television. So remaking it shot for shot, and I gotta believe Gus Van Sant realized that. Like, I'd like to think he did. I don't know, but I'm sorry for getting off track. But I do think that with remakes, it's a double-edged sword depending on who you talk to. Like, I'll give the best remake story I've got. Going into Rob Zombie's 2007 Halloween, everybody who my brother knew was like, oh, it's a remake of John's Halloween. And the movie hadn't come out yet. It was like the day before. And I'm like, wait a second. No one's seen the movie. How do we know that? And everybody just looked at me. I said, look, you got to see the movie before you say, well, it's just like John's, because none of us know that. I said, we can watch a trailer. If you're going to watch a trailer and say the movie's just like John's, you could be misleading yourself there. I said, because
especially with a 3-minute trailer, and you're remaking a classic, you're going to show some of the highlights that everybody knows about the film.
Yep.
To entice them in. I'm going to go out on a limb. Maybe I'll get some dislikes, and that's fine. I kind of liked Rob Zombie's Halloween. Did I love it? No. Is it an all-time classic? Probably not. Did I enjoy it? Yeah. I mean, he did not remake the same film. He told the same story, but these are totally different characters. I do wish. Well, that's a whole other thing. We can do that one later. I don't want to get started.
Yeah. October's coming. We'll cover that. But with the original 310 Yuma, make sure I get this right because I don't want to mispronounce anybody's name and go to hell. So in the original 310, where's that at? Yeah, in the original 310 Yuma, we have Glenn Ford and Van Heflin, which I actually liked him in this role better than I did that movie that we won't mention. It starts with S. But he was, because that's where there's some similarities between this and the remake, that his cattle gets lost, and in the remake, the gang uses the cattle to sort of stop the wagon, stops the stage. You see more of a full-on robbery in the remake than you do the original, in my opinion. What do you think, Butch?
Yeah. The thing is, this you start with the original.
Yes.
I do want to say this. First of all, Glenn Ford makes a great villain, very charming villain. I think it's Alfred Hitchcock that said that a film is only as good as its villain, and he does a good job. So in remaking it, we got they could go into things that they really kind of couldn't go into before, and it probably didn't have a budget for the whole wagon train assault and the Gatling gun and all that. I mean, that was, I'm sure that was an expensive shot for the whole scene. I will say, I think this is a good remake because it tells the same story. There are times when they are copying, maybe not the exact same dialogue, but very, very similar dialogue, tells a very similar story, but they put their own spin on it.
The dialogue is close to the original, but it's not. It doesn't try to mirror it to the exact degree.
Right.
I agree with you. And I like Glenn Ford's sort of charming villain with the lady. Now, to be fair, Russell Crowe does that too. The difference, I would say, like the biggest differences between the two men is Russell Crowe loves to draw. And let me ask you, Butch, did you take that as like a calling card or no?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. You're supposed to, with right there when they first introduce Russell Crowe's version, he's drawing, I think it's a vulture.
Yeah.
And then he goes and puts it on the trim. Yeah, it's here's the thing. I have not said, this is the first time I've really watched the original 310 to Yuma. I've seen bits and pieces.
Cool.
And this was something I was looking forward to us doing so I could watch it. Now, I did see the remake in the theater. And I'll be honest with you, the first time I saw it, I didn't like it.
Really?
However, watching it again, I like it a lot better. There's a few things that they use very trope-wise, like Ben Wade, who is the bad guy, played by Glenn Ford in the original, and Russell Crowe in the remake. Mm. Russell Crowe's version, he's what I call a Bible-quoting villain.
Yeah.
I hate that. I really do. I get it. Back then there weren't that many books, and pretty much everybody could get a copy of the Bible, and so everybody, thankfully, that ties into something that comes up later in the film. So I was like, okay, I'll forgive that. We'll go into that in a little bit. Where and the son in the remake was kind of a teenage jerk, and dad's an idiot, and every man who's made it through his teenage years can look at that kid and go, oh God, I know him, because I know I did. However, the son grows on you. It's not the drawing, and the son really. The son is in the original, but not the whole little subplot about him with his father. And there is no drawing in the original, so.
Right.
Anybody that's not seen a quick recap, Ben Wade is the criminal. He gets caught. Yep. There's part of the people that catches him is a guy named rancher named Dan Evans. Dan Evans needs money. The railroad's going to pay him $200 to get Ben Wade to the 310 to Yuma train. Title drop. And I mean, you have this great interaction in both films, I think, between two good actors. When doing my research for this film, let me scroll it so I make sure I say it right. Originally, the remake was going to star Tom Cruise and Eric Bana. I don't know. Tom Cruise makes a good villain. I can't think of the movie where he plays a hitman with Jamie Foxx, but
in the taxi, I know which one you're talking about.
yeah. I love the ending to it if you've seen it. But once you have a Russell Crowe or a Christian Bale, I forget which one was cast first. I think it was Russell Crowe. You realize, okay, we've got an actor of worth here, so you have to have him have someone to bounce off of. You have to have another actor of worth. And I was over at Patrick's house last night, and we were talking about Dark Shadows. Imagine that. And I was thinking about the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows, and a lot of movies Johnny Depp must. The problem I feel like with Johnny Depp is he needs somebody, not that he can't do it himself, but he needs somebody to bounce off of.
Yeah.
Somebody to interact with. And in a lot of those films where he's playing Ichabod Crane from Sleepy Hollow yet again, because to me that's what every character he's played since then is, he needs somebody to bounce off of, and I think that would help. So this film has two great actors, and and the original's got two good actors. That both Van Heflin, to me, yeah. If you put a picture up of a rancher, that guy's the rancher. And Glenn Ford, like I said, usually he played the good guy. I mean, it's almost like finding a film where Randolph Scott plays the bad guy, which I don't think he ever did. But gosh, I would have watched the heck out of that.
Yeah, Randolph Scott was retired by this time, wasn't he, or no?
Oh yeah. Well, no, and in the original, I'd have to look it up. I don't think so. It was close. I think he still had the one with Sam Peckinpah. I want to say that was around 1960.
Oh, okay.
With Dan Doria, Marriott Hartley. Gosh, my memory's going, man. I'm getting old, but. Anybody that's watching this can't figure it out, go Google Randolph Scott and Sam Peckinpah.
What? You want the arrow off? No. Sorry. I will say that too with Christian Bale's character, there are some differences between the ranchers. Christian Bale's character was in the war and he lost his leg, and he doesn't speak of how until near. Spoiler alert till the end. And Van Heflin's character, his legs are fine. He wasn't, that we know of, he wasn't in the war, but I really enjoyed both Van Heflin's take and Glenn Ford's take as well. I enjoyed both movies because they're different enough apart that they separate themselves from each other that you can really appreciate both. And that's the best compliment I'll give for like a remake and an original being opposite of each other. And I think what really helps too with the remake is because with the original, if no one's seen it, they get to the place, they get to a town where the 310 Yuma train is very quickly. It's not as long as the remake where they go across like this big vast desert and all this stuff. And they run into a mining camp too in the remake where they were going to like torture Russell Crowe's character. I think they've been taking lessons from Butch. But it is really interesting how different these movies are, and not just because of when they were made and who was in them, but the decisions that got made to make them different. And that's something I appreciate most. Like, look, I don't mind a remake, just if you're gonna do it, make sure you try to be at least separate enough from the original. And the remake does that. But what I love about the original too, and I do want to ask you this, is what did you think? Because what did you think of? Van Heflin's rancher, because he is very. He seems like at times like he's ready. There's that hotel scene where I thought he was going to shoot
Glenn Ford.
Glenn Ford's character, he doesn't obviously, even like rewatching this again, I'm thinking, wait, does he? Because I tried to remember as I was watching, wait, does he shoot him? I don't think he does. But like when as a hotel room, I thought Van Heflin was just gonna like at least shoot him in the leg or something. But no, he pointed that gun and he said, don't ever do that again. Then he does save his life. What did you think of that interaction there at the hotel?
Yeah, that's the thing, and I think maybe part of the reason that 310 to Yuma possibly isn't as well known as a lot of the westerns we've done is the original is very much a character study. There's no big action sequence, there's no big gunfight at the end. I mean, there's a little bit, but there's no big gunfight. That's what the whole. Every time, as soon as they get to the hotel room, all the way to the end, I mean, that is just two good actors going back and forth. I think now maybe since we've just watched both of them, I may be misremembering, but I swear in the original there's a scene, a line where somebody says that Van Heflin is the best shot in the town.
Yep. That's
so. Looking at him, both films are supposed to take place in the 1880s. He probably is a Civil War veteran, just like Christian Bale's version. But that is some serious supposition. But you look at him, he looks like he's in his 40s at least. So he most likely is a Civil War veteran. And he has a sense of menace that Christian Bale's character totally does not have.
Yeah.
But Christian Bale is playing a slightly different version, who's kind of even more beaten down. He's gone through everything Van Heflin's gone through, and he's missing a foot.
Yeah.
So he's a little more beat down, where Van Heflin has a little bit of, boy, you pushed me too far.
Yeah.
And you believe it. I mean, it's believable.
Van Heflin's that, like, in this movie, his character is that guy you don't want to piss off.
He's very much as they used to say, you got to watch out for the quiet ones.
Oh,
you push
him
or,
Yep. I agree.
Actually, I'll say something funny. Well, not funny, but I thought was funny. Did you ever watch Star Trek Deep Space Nine?
Yeah.
Okay, you know who O'Brien is? Chief O'Brien?
Yep.
Chief O'Brien is a descendant of Van Heflin's Dan Evans. Because Chief's the same way. He's just, he's a family man, doing his job, and then you push him too far, and it's not going to work out well for you.
I think literally Paramount should make a T-shirt with O'Brien on it, and with the head of a Cardi, and say the only good Cardi is a dead Cardi. That's what I would buy that shirt tomorrow if they made it.
No, and it has to have. Did you ever watch? He came from Next Generation, and there's an episode where he runs into his previous captain, who hates the Cardassians even more. So it's like, put Captain Maxwell on there.
Yes.
I was actually, God, I'm getting off topic, but sorry, but somebody posted on one of the Star Trek groups on Facebook when the Dominion War was going so bad. Do you think they might have reactivated Captain Maxwell? And I was like, man, I think that'd be, you got to go into the lore for my answer, but things were going really bad for the Federation. I have no problem believing they went, tell you what, bud, everything's forgiven. You want to come fight some Cardassians with us? So that's kind of what spurred the whole, plus the Van Heflin looks a little bit like Colm Meaney, who played Chief O'Brien.
Yeah, he does.
But, so that's, sorry. Now let's totally get back to this, because Star Trek is not 310 Yuma.
Sorry. I do think with 310, with both versions of 310 Yuma, that because Van Heflin's character, you're right, he's somebody you don't want to mess with. Watch out for the quiet ones. With Christian Bale's character, both movies I think are great movies of character studies, both of them. But in different ways, where Van Heflin and Glenn Ford are measuring each other, trying to figure more Glenn Ford's trying to figure out Dan, and also Heflin's trying to figure out Glenn Ford's character. but it's the same in the remake, but in a different way. Because what ultimately in the remake, God, I'm blanking. What Chris? Sorry, I'm like freaking forgetting names here.
Christian Bale.
I'm getting old too.
What are you, 30?
Russell, yeah, I'm 42. I know I don't look 42. I know. But Russell Crowe, what Russell Crowe can't figure out is why Dan's doing all this. Like, okay, $200, though a lot in that day, it's going to buy you time. It's not going to buy you a lot of things, like a bunch of time for your land, because the railroad has been harassing Dan to leave. They burned his barn down in the beginning in the movie, because that's how bad the railroad wants Dan off the land. And they even tell him, "Hey, we want you off. You're gone. Like, it doesn't matter what you do." And that's why he really agrees. That's one of the reasons he goes with them to escort Russell Crowe's character. But there's another reason that we don't know of, and it's that war reason where he tells Russell Crowe, he goes, "Imagine looking in your son's eyes. He thinks you're a hero, but you don't have the heart to tell him you're not a hero. I got my leg blown off by one of my own, friendly fire." And that's what the timing of that scene in that part of the movie was so good, because it felt so real.
Yep. Yeah. When he sees how the teenage son is becoming a punk teenage kid, like I think like probably all of us did. Hopefully some of you are smarter than I was. And he knows better than to go, "Oh yeah, well, we were retreating and I got my foot blown off by one of my own men." And that's the point where Russell Crowe looks at him and he's like, because then you find out, I guess we're far enough into it for anybody who wants to skip. The reason that Russell Crowe is the Bible quoting villain is his father either ran off or died. I forgot which. And his mother took him to the train station and handed him a Bible and told him to start reading. And she'll come back for him after she gets the tickets. Took him 3 days to finish the Bible, and Mom never came back. So he tells that story right after Christian Bale tells his foot story. And it suddenly makes his Bible quoting, like you're seeing that small child that got left by his mother and didn't really have a father. And here's this father who's, regular guy, good guy, trying to do right. And that's when he makes the changeover. He's like, "Nah, I'm going to prison. I'm going to help you, get you your money and, help you." Because he's like, I want someone my son can look up to. And you can tell, without doing the light comes down on him. And he's like, "Oh," but you can tell Russell Crowe's like, "Yeah, okay, I'm going to help you out."
And I think Russell Crowe's line because Glenn Ford has the line too, that they both characters have escaped from Yuma prison before. I actually like Crowe's a little better because of it happens after everything they talked about too. It's like and the fact that Christian Bale's looking at him like, "What?"
Yeah, because with Glenn Ford, it's roughly 30 minutes earlier in the story. Please don't pull up times and anybody. And well, it's actually 32 minutes, but it's before the big showdown, if you will. Yeah. Whereas when Russell Crowe, he's already on the train, and we'll get to that ending in a minute. But yeah, I think it works better. And now I really laugh at that last scene where he whistles for the horse.
Yeah.
I'm like, am I watching Red Dead Redemption, the movie?
Yeah. It feels like you are too at the end there.
Hey, here's some interesting trivia for you. You may know it. Both of the guys who played Ben Wade, the bad guy, Glenn Ford and Russell Crowe, both went on to play a father of Superman.
Ooh.
The first movie I ever saw Glenn Ford in is in the 1978 Superman Richard Donner with Christopher Reeve, where he plays Jonathan Kent.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Russell Crowe plays Jor-El in Man of Steel.
Nice.
So
nice.
that's a weird. I just like, both of them played a father to Superman. Interesting.
Yeah. Cool. The first movie I saw Russell Crowe in was not Gladiator. No offense to Gladiator. Was a movie called Virtuosity with him and Denzel Washington. And, Russell Crowe played a villain in that movie, and it is like he's sadistic in that movie. He
plays a good villain.
Huh?
He plays a good villain, I think. Yeah. I think a lot of people go, yeah, I'm going to play the villain. I've got you now. And, I mean, yeah, you can do that, but there's something about the, that's nice. Or Patrick talks about, going back to Superman for just a minute, Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor, and he's launched a missile to California, and his female henchman, or I guess henchwoman's like, my mother lives in California, and he just looks at his watch and then looks at her and goes, and I know a lot of younger people, maybe you're in this group, maybe not, it's not fun. It's fine. I'm not bashing y'all.
Right.
They look at that film, and there's parts where I look at it and say, yeah, that's pretty campy. But that is like the one scene that sounds like it's going to be campy. And Gene Hackman, whew. Sometimes I forget what a good actor he was and what a good choice he was for Lex Luthor, even if he didn't get to be too villainous in that. But that one scene, wow.
Yeah, you're right. We covered Superman. I think me and you covered Superman. I also covered Superman with a bunch of other people too, including Patrick. And you're right. That scene where he looks at the watch and he's just like, he's looking up at her. He's like, nope. He doesn't say a word. He just shakes his head. And it's just like, damn, that's fucking cold.
That is. In the original, because I looked this up. According to Wikipedia, this takes place in the 1880s, and several characters carry Winchester 1892s, which obviously came out in 1892. One of those nitpicky things my friend James Hill would look at me and go, "Can't you just sit there and enjoy the film?" And I'm like, "No."
What's your favorite scene in the original and the remake, Butch?
Well, it involves Dan Evans and Ben Wade. I probably in the original is when towards the end, Dan Evans's wife shows up and she's like, "No, just let him go. I don't care. We'll figure something out." And she's like, "It doesn't matter. Nobody cares." And one of the guys that had been helping him was the town drunk who had gotten killed. And he's like, if I do that, he's died for nothing. How can I be less of a man than the man everybody else called the town drunk?
Yeah.
And it's just like,
yeah. Ouch.
I mean, that's not a burn, but that's a kick. And that scene, that means a lot. In the original, in the remake, I guess we're okay to spoil it now. At the very end, they get in both movies, Dan gets Ben on the train.
Yeah.
And we're led to believe that Ben's going to get himself free. But all Dan had to do was get him on the train, not get him to prison, make sure he stays there. Mm-hmm. Well, in the remake, soon as they get on the train, Christian Bale is getting on it, and Ben Foster, who plays Charlie Prince, he's the second in command of the bad guy gang, and I want to talk about him in just a minute. They're coming up behind him, and just as Christian Bale's like going for the train, he gets shot and he turns around and he shoots him like 4 or 5 times, and the sun is there, and he's like, you're just like, oh shit, just as he's achieved all this. And there's a point earlier in the film where one of the guys guarding Russell Crowe has Russell Crowe's gun, and Russell Crowe tells him that gun's got a curse.
Yeah.
I think somebody says, I believe, on the way, everybody it touches it dies.
Yeah.
And that guy ends up dying like 20 minutes later. And they pass Wade's gun up. They the gang, the bad guy gang, and they toss it to him. And Russell Crowe just kind of gets this look on his face, and he whips it out and he shoots his whole gang.
Yeah.
And the look on all their face, the look on Russell Crowe's face, and it's not like I'm mad at the world. It's just like, okay, because he even says earlier, sounds like doing good things. If I do good things, it'll lead to more, and because he don't want to be a good guy, and he ends up killing the whole gang. And to me, that is so satisfying, because you can tell that these two men have bonded through this adversity. I mean, they're friends. I mean, I won't say I necessarily could see Dan riding the train down to Yuma to go visit Ben, but by the same token, I could see him going down there, at least once or twice, and watching him do that. It was, for a film that didn't have a quote big gunfight, even though it kind of is a big gunfight, that was a very satisfying resolution, and for what Charlie Prince had done.
My favorite scene in the original is all that time that Van Heflin and Glenn are in the room. Like, it's a chess match between two great actors.
Yep.
And they're just measuring the hell out of each other. I do give the remake credit for trying to sort of not necessarily copy it, because I think with where their measuring is done their measuring is done throughout the film. They through start to finish.
Yeah.
Where the biggest part of the character measuring, I'm not saying it doesn't take place during the film, but it more takes place in that room. And for the remake, I really love how my favorite scene in the remake is the mining camp where freaking Russell Crowe's character is basically going to be tortured. Now they have to save his ass. It's like the irony of it all.
Escaped, but not too far. Hey, I got one for you. When they free Russell Crowe, the doctor hits somebody in the face with the shovel.
Yep.
The guy who gets hit in the face was that movie's weapons expert. His name is Mike Tristano. I may be mispronouncing that, and I apologize. But I thought that was kind of funny, because it's a rather decent thing. I enjoyed that, because I didn't really like the doc, mostly because. Well, Joel, our friendship may change with me saying this, but the doctor's played by the little nerdy guy from the most overrated television show of all time, Serenity or Firefly or whatever it's called. I was like, I kept waiting on him to die.
He does die at the mining camp. He does get shot in the back. Yeah. Yeah, hold on, buddy. But I do think like the shootout at the end in the remake, because Russell Crowe, he sees what's about to happen. He's like, no, and he watches Dan get shot. And when they hand him his gun, and I think what Ben Foster says, that's one tough farmer, stubborn farmer, and you see the look on Russell Crowe's face, like Ben Foster's character is about to die. That's the look Russell Crowe is really giving, and he just shoots his whole gang. I do think Ben Foster steals the movie a bit at times. He does a really Ben Foster is really good at playing villains too. Really talented actor. He's usually the co-star in a lot of the movies he's in. but he usually plays similar characters where they're tough guys. But he's good at it though too.
Yeah, I think both the guys that played Charlie Prince, the second command of the bad gang, do a good job. They're both kind of intimidating, and they have this thing. I will say, I saw Ben Foster in 3 films, not literally one after the other, but I saw them. This 30 Days of Night and the remake of The Mechanic, and it's like, does this guy ever not look like a crackhead? And he seems like he's always playing second fiddle. In 30 Days of Night, he's like the lead, the town crier for the vampires, and he's like, yeah, you're gonna get yours. And he's second fiddle here, and he's second fiddle in the Mechanic remake. Now, let me ask you this, Joel. In the remake, specifically just the remake, what do you think the relationship between Ben Foster and Russell Crowe's character is?
Oh, God, that's a good... I do think there's a little bit of not just friendship, if you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, because I was, like we talked about when we talked about the greatest Western of all time, The Wild Bunch.
Yep.
Ernest Borgnine's character, Dutch, who's second in command of the bad guy gang. Dutch is in love with Pike. And I feel like Ben Foster's Charlie Prince is in love with Russell Crowe's Ben Wade. I don't know if Ben knows or cares. I feel like he probably knows.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just so dogged. And is Ben okay? You up there? He calls him boss. You okay, boss? Where's the boss? Boss this, boss that. And I swear, and you can laugh, and because I kind of laughed too after I thought about it, but when he shoots Christian Bale and Christian Bale falls, there's a look on Ben Foster's face like, you put my boyfriend on the prison train.
Yeah.
And you look at, seriously, it's like he's about to cry. Like, you did that to my boyfriend. It kind of cracked me up. I feel like that was intentional because I didn't get that feeling in the original. The second command was loyal to his boss, because in both cases, I feel like both of them knew, hey, I'm not smart enough to run this gang. So, I'm going to let someone do this.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say he knows that he's not smart enough to run the gang, so he just sticks to the boss.
There's a couple telltale signs of this too with Ben Foster's character and him being in love with Russell Crowe's character. That when Russell Crowe's character is drawing the vulture, he's watching. When they realize they've been duped and they've been following the stagecoach, and now they have to go 800 miles the other way, he looks at every one of those. He looks at those men. Do you remember where you were when he saved you? Think of what he's done for you, for all of us. That speech there means a lot more than I think what people think it does. He is not just this is somebody who isn't just infatuated with his boss. He's in love with it. He doesn't care who he has to kill, hurt, maim, and destroy to save his boss. He'll do it. He will do it. He doesn't care how many miles he has to go. He'll do it.
Yep. Yeah, totally. Which is kind of another flashback to Wild Bunch, when towards the beginning, after they robbed the city, and they're kind of rebelling against Pike, and Ernest Borgnine's like, they're like, well, we need to bury this man. Yeah, and let's have and then Ernest Borgnine's character's like, yeah, and let's have a lunch and sing some hymns, and I mean, he's such a smart ass, but he's right. It's like, we're bad guys. We don't have time. We don't have time for sentimentality. And I feel like Ben Foster's version of Charlie Prince is probably a complete psychopath.
Oh yeah.
Whereas Charlie Prince in the first one, I mean, he's not a guy to mess with. He's a bad man. He can shoot, but he doesn't strike me as the psycho that Ben Foster is. It's just like he would kill you just as much as look at you, like you just said. And God help you if you're in between him and his boss.
I would say in the first, like in the original 310 Yuma, that the henchman, the second in command, is more, I will do what I can to get to save my boss, but he does. It's not the same as Ben Foster's character, and I agree with you. And they do try to like stop it. I think that's the difference too. The second in command gets capped. Van Heflin. It's like we see Van Heflin shoot a motherfucker. It's like yes. It's like, but yeah, it's a both endings are really good. So.
You know, one thing that I will put forth that I feel like the original does better than the remake. In both films, Dan Evans's farm is in a drought. Yeah. That's why he needs the $200 to get water, pay for water rights. Well, in the original, sorry.
Oh, so I said he needs the money. I'm sorry.
Yeah, he needs the money. Got to work hard for that money. So hard for the money. So treat him right. We see like there's a storm coming in, and the original ends just as the storm breaks. They're on the Van Heflin and I almost said Randolph Scott. Glenn Ford are on the train. Van Heflin's wife is there, and the storm breaks and it starts raining, and so it's like, yay, everything's gonna be okay. They're gonna have the money and everything. The same thing happens in the remake, but there's not as much attention made to it because a lot of the scenes that Joel and I have talked about in the hotel in the original, you hear thunder, and there's a scene. There's even a line where Glenn Ford says something about, "Wonder if it's raining over in wherever the ranch is." He mentions the city's name, and we do as the remake ends is Russell Crowe whistles for his horse. Apparently, he's going to jump off the train. The storm hits, and we see a storm in that town, but it's not paid as much, I guess, because they decided to kill Dan off in this one. Yeah. But there's a point where Christian Bale is looking at the railroad guy, and he's like, "Okay, you're gonna give me $1,000. You're gonna make sure my wife gets home, and you're gonna make sure this, and you're gonna make sure that." He's like, I'm doing this, and by God, you're gonna pay me. And I have the feeling that if Mr. Railroad Guy didn't do everything that Christian Bale said, that Russell Crowe's character will be showing up pretty soon and going, "Weren't you supposed to pay them that money?"
Want to hear my theory? I think Russell Crowe's character jumps off the horse and he spies on the railroad guy, making sure he does just what he promised. Oh my God.
I could almost see him eventually coming back around, because in both films, the Ben Wades very much flirt with the wives of Dan Evans.
Oh, they do, yeah.
I can't see it in the original, but in the remake, yeah, I could almost see Russell Crowe coming back around to Gretchen Mol and going, "Hey, go to San Francisco." Yeah. Whether she goes or not, that's up to you, but I could totally see that happening.
Yeah. I think both movies are just so fun. What do you give the remake and the original? 1 to 10.
I will give the original a 7.5. And I'll give the same for the remake. It does a really good job of telling. Movies have evolved since the original came out to the point where when the remake came out, they've gotten more complex. They've gotten more advanced. They tell, they can tell the same story, but they tell it differently. And all those advances from the original to the remake are there. But in this case, I think it all helps. Because, sometimes we'll see remakes where they add stuff in. It's like like the horror movie trope now where, the cell phone doesn't work. Okay, just don't even mention it then. I mean, it's so overused. But this I mean, I didn't realize you're going to mention it because everybody's going to go, why don't they just use their cell phone to call the police or whoever? So in this case, though, all of the changes in film from the original to the remake, I just feel like it makes a better film and tells a better story, or tells it better, maybe more satisfying. But I think both films are really good. I believe, well, the original was on Amazon. I watched it and then it said like it's leaving Prime in 2 days, so I don't know if it's still there or not.
I watched the original on Film Archives, and I own the remake, so on my Xbox. I own 3 movies on my Xbox. I own Outland. I own 310 Yuma, the remake, and I own Ridley Scott's first movie, The Duelist, which is a great film. But I give the remake and the original the same score as you do. 7.5. I'll go 7.5 too. I think both just complement each other so well without trying to be one another. Agreed. And if you're honestly going to make a remake, please, for the love of God, do that. Compliment the best way to compliment the original is try not to be exactly the original movie.
And why, it's like, usually the comic book series Watchmen is considered the greatest comic book series of all time. And a lot of people talk about film adaptations and how it doesn't follow it and another, but I figure most people have heard of Watchmen. How it follows or it doesn't follow. And it's like, if you just want to see each little panel up on the screen and somebody saying the line, I don't necessarily mind some changes, especially if it helps your story, because this was based, I don't know if you know, you probably know this, but I don't know if anybody else. It was based on a short story by Elmore Leonard from 1953. And what I find amusing is none of the characters have the same name in the story. So they just copied from the remake, copied the names from the original. But if you're going, like you say, if you're going to do a remake, hit the highlights. Mm-hmm. I think you need to not have just one person writing your script. You need to get 3 or 4 or 5 so you have some alternating viewpoints. Because what I may think is the most important part of the story, you and the other 4 people may disagree, and I may be wrong just because it hits me in a way that that it doesn't hit everybody else. So, I don't mean we have to include everything everybody says, but yeah, hit the highlights, but then tell your version of this story. I don't, as much as everybody wants to crap on Rob Zombie's Halloween, I give it points for not telling me the exact same story. Why do we need to see the same story over?
Like later on tonight, I'm going to do a video about what I think they should do for the Halloween TV series. Mm-hmm. And if you really want to be different, and if you're going to base it off of John's Halloween, here's a suggestion. 1, don't time jump. Go right from the go from 1978 where the murders took place. But instead of seeing Laurie Strode and Dr. Loomis, who we've seen throughout the history of the Halloween franchise, tell it from a different. You see this guy in this home watching horror movies. Him and his wife. Hey, are the kids in bed? She's like, yeah. You want to fool around? No. Then this guy hears screaming. He's like, he gets up. He's like, she's like, what is it? He goes, you don't hear that? And he comes to the door. He opens and hears these 2 kids. It's Tommy Doyle and Lindsay Wallace. And he's like, whoa, it's Mr. McKenzie, because she said go down the street to the McKenzies. And he says, well, calm down. What's wrong? And before they can get a word out, you hear bang, 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 the 6 shots, because they're just down the street.
Right.
And he's like, come on, get inside. He goes, call the police. And that's where you should start that. Not where we saw it, because we know what happens. We know Michael gets shot. We know he falls off the balcony. We need to see it from different people's perspective who we haven't seen. Because that you want to keep it fresh. You can have Laurie Strode and Michael Myers, sure. and Dr. Sam Loomis, well, you're going to have.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've got to have Dr. Loomis.
You're going to have Michael Myers, but you need to be fresh enough where, okay, nobody in Haddonfield other than Sam Loomis, Sheriff Brackett, Laurie Strode, who survived, and those two kids. Well, sorry, no. Loomis, Brackett know Myers escaped. They know Myers got out. Nobody else knows that. Because Laurie Strode doesn't know that's Michael Myers underneath that mask. So.
To jump on your bandwagon there for just a second. If you do a Halloween TV show,
yes,
you have to have Michael Myers.
Oh yeah, you do.
It's like we're going to do a Superman TV show, but he's not going to be Superman.
Yeah.
Then why the hell are you doing it?
Yeah.
You said we're going to do a series about Clark Kent.
Yeah.
They talked about after Smallville was something of a rating. Said they talked about doing a series on Bruce Wayne. It's like, okay, you've already got a better head up because he's not Batman yet.
Yeah.
Don't tell me. As much as I enjoyed Friday the 13th, the series, you had to get past the fact it had nothing to do with Jason and Camp Crystal Lake. Though the joke was that they wanted to, in the last episode, come in and they have the hockey mask, and that's the last thing they have to save and put back in the vault. But if you do, I feel like you have to have some Michael Myers, some Dr. Loomis's, some Laurie Strode. Yeah, but I'm with you. If you're going to do something, I might almost trash it all. No offense, this is to me.
Right.
Do a Dr. Loomis series. You start at the end of Psycho. Yeah. And he goes back, we talked about this when we did Psycho. He goes back to school, becomes a doctor of psychology, and we see Loomis go from the guy he is in Psycho to Dr. Loomis roughly 15 years later in Halloween.
Yeah.
That, but you call the show Dr. Loomis or something like that, Loomis or something.
Yeah. I was talking to the writer of Halloween 6, Daniel Ferentz, and I said, do you ever think we'll get a Dr. Loomis series? And he said, yeah. He thinks, we're going to get that one day. Now, I don't know when, but he thinks it'll definitely happen one day. And I agree with him, and I agree with you, too, that I would love to see a young Dr. Loomis. Who is he? What is he stand like? We know he knows a lot about evil. How does he know that? Is it because it's the guy from Psycho, or is it because it's something else? But I do think that they need to, with this series, when you have Michael, have him kill other babysitters after he leaves. That's what you'll hear. You'll hear breathing because he got shot. He's walking down the street and nobody sees him. Yeah. And this girl who is just sitting on her couch, she sees the sirens going down. She doesn't think nothing of it. Why? It's Halloween.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have no more questions about 310 to Yuma. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there. Anything you want to add, Butch, before we go?
Well, let me hit my last few notes for anybody interested. The story by Elmore Leonard begins in a hotel room where a deputy sheriff is guarding a 21-year-old robber. Glenn Ford was offered the role of Dan Evans. He refused, but suggested himself for Ben Wade. And as we said, this is one of the few times he played a villain. As I said, so a lot of the characters in the original use Winchester 92s, and it takes place in the 1880s. According to IMDb, the remake takes place in August of 1884. Mexican sharpshooter uses a Colt model 1855 with cartridge conversion. I personally noticed a lot of the characters in the remake using the single action army pistol, including Ben Wade, which, by the way, his guns look sweet, even with the cross. They look nice. Yeah, I think I got on my notes there. But I'm glad you mentioned it. You brought this up because, like I said, I've watched bits. I've watched bits, which is like bits without a T. I've watched bits and pieces of the original 310, and it's like, good. I get to finally watch this.
In 2 weeks, we'll cover another Western. Butch, it's your turn to pick.
Well, I was trying to. You mentioned, when we talked about on Facebook getting back to doing this every other week. Excuse me. You had a list of films.
Yeah,
and I don't know if this. Well, I was gonna say I don't know if this film's on there, but I feel like we need to finish it. We've done Rio Bravo. We've done El Dorado. So we got to bring in Baby Brother and do Rio Lobo. Probably already talked it to death with the other two, but we got to finish it.
We do got to cover it, and while we cover it, we're going to somewhat complain about it too in the process.
I'll go ahead and tell you one thing. John Wayne supposedly said, "Great, do I get to play the drunk this time?"
We wish he would have
been awesome.
Right? We wish he would have. Yeah. So 2 weeks, Rio Lobo. I look forward to it, buddy. Have a great rest of your weekend and stay safe, Butch.
You as well, bud. Take care.
Bye.